Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in Season 2 Part 15 of What If the Transformers Were in My Hero Academia. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 29, The Second Bracket. After the rather recoiling events of the previous match, Optimus had decided to take a stroll through the stadium, mainly to collect his thoughts. With 4 matches down, it was now 3:30 in the afternoon, and it had been announced that there would be a small intermission to clear the rest of the ice before the second bracket matches would begin. So, the Prime had taken it upon himself to undertake his own personal mission in that time, find the one who had created that massive ice mountain. He could see it in Shoto's eyes, there was something weighing on the boy's mind. I know he may think of me as meddlesome for doing this, but for his sake, perhaps a few words of wisdom would help alleviate whatever this is. Thankfully, he didn't have to search for very long. As he rounded the next corner, he could see the white and red-haired boy walking right toward him, unknowingly so considering he kept his head down the entire time. He didn't even notice Optimus as he passed by, though the Autobot commander quickly rectified that. I must say, that was quite the showing out there, young Shoto. Shoto brought his head up and whirled around, his eyes slightly widened as they spotted the holoform. Oh, it's you. Orion was your name, right? Indeed, Orion Pax. Orion extended his hand to the young man. Apologies for the lack of a proper introduction earlier. Shoto reciprocated, though he shook his head. No, it's understandable. After all, you're Midoriya's mentor, so it was only natural that you'd greet him first. Yes, of course. Orion tilted his head with a small grin. Though again, I must commend you for such a unique display you gave us. My associates and I were actually seated with your classmates, so we had a very detailed view of your creation. The boy coughed and brought his head down again. Alright, sorry. That attack went overboard. I was just had a lot on your mind. Once more, Shoto's attention was caught, his eyes shifting up and staring at Orion through his bangs shamefully. I could see it, you know. Your rather dark expression said it all down on the battlefield. And judging from the strength of your attack, your emotional state seemed shaken. He raised a brow to Shoto. Forgive me if I'm prying, but did something happen before the match? In truth, something had happened, but Shoto couldn't divulge that to someone he barely knew. He turned away from the disguised bot and muttered, it's nothing. Just a bit of frustration is all. I see. With Izuku. That took Shoto off guard. He peered over his shoulder to see Orion with a pondering hand on his chin. I must say, I could sense it the moment I found you two earlier. You must consider my pupil to be a great rival considering how much of a fight you put up against him in the cavalry battle. Yeah, you could say that. Once again, the Prime tilted his head, feigning ignorance. Though I must ask, why is that? He was in first place, simple as that. Shoto replied. And like many others here, I want to win the sports festival. Is that so? That's understandable. Orion closed his eyes in thought before opening them again, this time wearing a more serious demeanor. Though I sense that there might be more than meets the eye with this situation. After all, I heard that your father, Endeavor, is in the building. That got Shoto's eyes to widen more, and Orion knew he had his hook. Perhaps that has something to do with. Enough. Shoto clenched his teeth, glaring at the Autobot leader. You don't have a damn thing to do with this, Mr. Pax, so stay out of it. There was a long pause as silence permeated throughout the hallway, though Orion's only reaction was giving a long sigh. So, it seems we have reached the root of the problem. Shoto stomped his foot forward. Like I said, there is no. I heard much of your conversation with Izuku from earlier, Shoto. And just like that, everything stopped for the half-and-half quirk user, his mouth falling open in shock. Albeit by accident. While I was searching for my protege, I happened to stumble upon the both of you while you were in the middle of your conversation. He bowed to him apologetically. I'm sorry, and I know it is not my place to weigh in on your personal life. At this point, Shoto was shaking, though whether in fear or rage, he couldn't quite tell. Why you can't tell anyone? If this gets out. Don't worry, your information is safe. Orion reassured, raising his hand. After all, after my first encounter with your father, the last thing I wish to incur is his wrath. He closed his eyes, crossing his arms. Though to be honest, to say that of someone who calls themselves a hero is incredibly ironic. Once again, it was silent for a moment, but Optimus was patient. He knew that the young man before him still had words to say, otherwise he would have excused himself by now. That man is a bastard. Shoto muttered, his fists trembling as he clenched his teeth again. Abusing my mother, ignoring my older siblings, and all the bull crap he put me through, I have nothing but contempt for that man. Orion's brow furrowed. I can't necessarily blame you for that, young Shoto. The Prime reached out and took a firm hold of Shoto's shoulder, the boy flinching a bit but staying in place. However, I would highly advise not taking out your frustrations on your peers as you did just now. Your ice is powerful, and in turn, it can also be dangerous if it gets too cold. The young man closed his heterochromatic eyes, nodding at his words. I know, and I'm sorry. A smile came to Orion as he gave Shoto's shoulder a reassuring pat. I know. I would also advise you going to your peers for help rather than declaring war on them. Shoto's eyes shifted down as he pursed his lips in frustration, Orion taking his hand away. I'm aware that you see several similarities between Izuku and All Might, and that by defeating him with only your ice, you feel that you will prove a point to your father. But believe me, you would find it better to find an ally in Izuku and your other classmates rather than push them away. I'm not exactly known for my social skills. Well, I was very much the same at your age. Orion chuckled, jerking a thumb to his chest. But I learned this lesson fairly early on, in a time where things weren't so good for me or the team of heroes that I was a part of. As such, I had to step up and become a leader in a most desperate time. The disguised commander began to move away from Shoto, but not before giving another pat to his shoulder. If you wish to become a great hero, young Shoto, then I would recommend you remember that. For now, rest. You have quite a few fights left ahead of you, after all. It was good talking with you, Mr. Pax. And thank you. Shoto acknowledged, his mind feeling much less clouded than it had been earlier. You are very welcome. I hope we get to talk some more soon. As he began walking away, Optimus smiled to himself. Even if he is still unsure of what to do next, I hope that my words were able to help him if only a little, he thought on his way back to the stands. Several minutes later, the field had been successfully cleared with all the ice melted. However, upon the Autobot leader's return, he had noticed that there were now several empty seats. Ochako, Jiro, Kada, Momo, Kyoka, Mina and even Bakugo had all disappeared, with Denki being the only one to return. Oh, hey Orion. Denki caught himself as he greeted the Prime, getting a few worried stares from the other Autobots. Where did you go off to? Oh, just a walk while they cleared the field. Orion answered, not being completely honest with the blonde boy or the others. He knew Shoto would want to keep that conversation between them on the down low for now. By the way, you had an excellent showing out there, Denki. I was very impressed. Denki's hand went to his neck sheepishly. Thanks. His eyes trailed over toward Class 1B's seats, though thanks to the wall, he couldn't exactly see them. Still, he imagined that Abara was probably back over there with her class, too. It would have been cool if I had won, but hey, Shiozaki beat me fair and square. She's pretty tough. Sunny smirked and nudged Denki's shoulder. Hey, yeah, she certainly threw you off for a loop, though I couldn't help but notice you and her having a bit of a chit-chat down there. He saw Denki flinch, his cheeks flushing just slightly. Knew it. So, what were ya talking about? Oh, nothing. Denki snapped his head away from his Autobot partner. Nothing at all, But Sid was directly on his other side, the faux-hawked Autobot smirking as well. Oh really? Because if I didn't know any better, I'd say you two were getting to know each other a little. Some witty banter, Maybe a few pick-up lines, bonk. Ow. At his side, Stella brought her fist down upon his head, sending him down under the seats much to the shock of the students. Oh, will you stop teasing him, Sid? Seriously, it's not helping. She pointed sternly at the punk's brother. And that goes for you, too, Sonny. Stop picking on your friend. Hey, no problems here, Stella. Sonny raised his hands, attempting to appear innocent but failing with his nervous smile. Besides, we're all friends here, right? Haha, please don't hurt me. Stella rolled her eyes before sending an assuring smile to Denki. Well, anyway, I think it's awesome that you made a friend with someone from the other hero class. Maybe this way, 1A and 1B won't be at each other's throats. A sigh escaped Denki's lips as he slumped back in his chair. Yeah, hope so, though let's see how Kirishima and Tetsu's fight goes before we judge anything. Well, that's still a ways off. Buck said as he stood up from his seat and pointed down to the field, where a certain pink girl was coming through the east entrance tunnel. Because now, it's her time to shine. Come on, Mina, show these people what it means to be a wrecker. Even with the distance between them, Mina could still hear Bulkhead's words, and that made her grin widen with anticipation. I'll do my best, Bulk. Count on it. She took to the battlefield at the same time as Kada, the two girls locking onto each other's eyes with determination. Alright, party people. Present Mike piped up. Now that all the ice has been cleared, we're gonna charge right along to the 5th match. Our next opponents are both wild childs in their own rights, and both of them have quite the unique looks to match. Coming in from the east, wait, do those horns in her head serve a purpose? From Class 1A, it's Mina Ishido. This match is gonna be a piece of cake. Mina pumped her fist. And coming in from the west gate, it's the prehistoric pulverizer herself, Kada Kiryu. As the crowd cheered, Kada flexed her neck, popping a few joints to loosen herself up. She was about to speak to her opponent when, woo. Go get, Katie. A light blush came to her face and she snapped her head around, seeing her brother standing up and cheering loud and proud for her, much to her dismay. Woo. Yeah, that's my baby sister down there. Ice Age pointed right to her, with several other spectators staring awkwardly at him. Come on, K. Pinky over there's got nothing on ya. Kada facepalmed. Why? Mina placed her hands on her hips, giggling at Kentaro's antics. Hee, starting to regret wanting your brother here. Kada huffed, her attention going back to her. Well, that's family for ya. But let me tell ya, Mina, you're gonna regret those words. I'm far from being a piece of cake. But Mina just took that comment and ran with it. Girl, Dad Booty might wanna say otherwise. Ooh, at least take me out to dinner first before throwing out words like that. Kada feigned embarrassment as she cupped her cheeks with her hands. You're gonna make me blush over here. Ahem, ladies. Midnight piped up, patting her flog in her hand with her usual frisky grin. As much as I would love to hear this flirtatious banter go on for a little while longer, we do have a match to get to. She sent a wink to both of them. Just try not to get too handsy, alright. Mina and Kada narrowed their eyes at one another, reveling in the fun little back and forth they had before Present Mike gave the word, ready, begin. And just like that, both charged at one another, with Kada belting out a roar before bringing out her raptor legs, while Mina sprayed acid through the holes in her sneakers to skate around. Up in the stands, Izuku was silently taking notes as the battle went underway. I knew it. Both of them are more proficient in close quarters combat rather than ranged attacks. He continued to observe as the girls went in, throwing a few punches before ultimately, Mina decided to back off and throw a bit of acid at Kada. The Soro parts user was able to dodge, though, thanks to a tail-assisted leap. Ishido's able to project her acid pretty far, but ultimately not anything from super long range. She's gotta at least get within 10 feet for it to be effective. Meanwhile, Kiryu has very little in the way of projectile attacks, unless there's a dinosaur that can do something like that, but none come to mind. Back down on the battlefield, Kada was in hot pursuit of her target, wearing a playful smirk. Come on Mina, I thought you were gonna melt my butt. Oh, trust me, that's comin'. Mina spun around as she slid across the cement, before spraying the path in front of Kada with even more acid. For now, try some of this. Kada stopped on a dime, causing her to nearly trip in. Whoa. After getting herself balanced, she took a deep breath and pulled her arms up. Alright, if that's how you're gonna play, pterodactyl wings. The wing membrane extended from her arms and sides within seconds, and with a single flap, Kada was airborne. Ah, right. Forgot she could do that. Ah. Mina was back on the run with Kada closing in from the air, the pink girl shifting her eyes back and forth as her thoughts ran wild. Come on, there's gotta be something I can eat. Mina let out a yelp as a set of talons came down and scooped her up, bringing her high up into the air. She snapped her head up and saw Kada smirking down, which made Mina grimace. So, enjoying the view from up here. Yeah, an idea finally popped into Mina's head as she grabbed Kada by her ankles, expelling a low-power acid from her hands. But I'd rather get down now. Kada's eyes snapped open at the sudden pain, which in turn led her into a nosedive. Ah! Ouch! Ouch ouch! Wham! Both girls crash-landed, Kada's wings kicking up a cloud of dust as Mina tumbled away. Ha! Alright. Mina made a glob of acid in her hands, rushing back in to deal the final blow. Time to finish tea, huh? Wop poom. Without any warning, Mina suddenly felt all of the air getting blown out of her as, from out of the dust, a massive ankylosaurus tail came crashing into her, bringing her down to the floor coughing and hacking. Ah. Hawk hawk. What? Gotta say, that was quite the impressive trick, Mina. I should have seen it coming. Kada said as she emerged, her gym jacket now ripped as an entire set of ankylosaurus armor plating had burst out of her back. Thankfully, she had worn her custom suit underneath the jacket, so that the armor would adapt without all of her clothes ripping. So, let's keep this thing going. But her smile was replaced with a look of concern as she saw Mina roll over, gripping her stomach. Oh god, oh no, oh shit. All at once, Mina retched, her lunch ejecting itself from her stomach after that impact. Thankfully, there was no blood to be seen, though that did little to relieve her pain. Hoo-hoo, oh god. The pink girl could feel tears in her eyes as she felt Kada's hand on her shoulder. It wasn't rough, like she was about to attack, but more supportive as Mina composed herself. Mina, I am so sorry. Kada apologized, her armor retracting into her body. I thought I held back enough, but even that might have been too much for you. Slowly Mina brought her head up. Held back. Yeah, if that tail whip had been at full power, Kada clenched her teeth, feeling utterly terrible to her core. She punched the ground, covering her face in shame with her other hand. Goddammit. I should have known better. The Ankylo hammer is way too much for any one person to handle. Shoto. Midnight made her way onto the battlefield, kneeling down next to her student. Are you alright? Can you continue? Mina's complexion was visibly pale, though she didn't feel like anything was seriously broken. Still, that hit was hard. No, I can't, she sighed. I forfeit. Midnight nodded and raised her hand, bringing the battle to a close. Shoto can no longer continue. The winner is Kiryu. As the crowd cheered at Kada's victory, Mina smiled up to the gray-skinned girl weakly. Nice battle, Kada. I really wasn't expecting that. It looked like Kada was about to argue, but Mina reached up and took hold of her wrist, giving it a squeeze. Now you listen to me, girlfriend, I don't want you to beat yourself up over this just because I got hurt. It's obvious that you're way more powerful than me, and this proves it. But I could've. Tears of Kada's own were beginning to brim her eyes, threatening to fall. I could've. But you didn't. That's the important part, Mina asserted softly. Like you said, you held back. And an attack like that is gonna give villains a real run for their money. I'm sure a lot of people are gonna be impressed. She gave her friend a thumbs up. Just keep practicing and you'll get it to where this doesn't happen anymore, okay? Kada took a deep breath and wiped her eyes, nodding as she held back a sob. Right, okay. I'll do that, for sure. But let's not waste any more time. Kada put her arms under Mina's legs and back, picking her up bridal style. Right now, we've gotta get you to recovery, girl. You need it. Miss Kiryu. Midnight reached out. We have medical bots for that. I know, but I'm the one who hurt her. Kada pressed, insisting on doing it herself. If I'm going to move on in this tournament, I feel like I should at least be responsible for making sure Mina's okay, please. Midnight blinked and shifted her gaze over to Mina, who gave her a single nod, telling her that it was okay. Well, if you insist. She directed her hand over to the gate. Don't let me stop you, I suppose. Kada bowed her head as she began carrying Mina off, with Present Mike even commenting on it. Well, would ya look at that. Now that is true sportsmanship, ladies and gentlemen. Let's make sure that we give both these girls a big hand. Thankfully, the man's words were already being heeded, with chants for both Mina and Kada rang throughout the whole place. Mina, however, couldn't help but feel a little sad, even after assuring Kada. Even after all those weeks of exercising her quirk to near perfection, she still ended up losing. Granted, she knew that Kada was probably in a different power class than her, but still, the sting of defeat didn't go away knowing that. Hey! Mina's eyes moved up to her friend, who was giving a supportive smile. Don't you go getting sad on me now, Kay. Your acid quirk really gave me a run for my money. Thanks, but I still. Mina, win or lose, you still gave it your all, and I don't think anyone here could ask any less of you. Kada nudged her head behind her shoulder. And those guys out there, our classmates, your trainers, I'm betting that they're proud of you regardless. You're lucky to have so many great friends, Mina. She gave her another sly wink. Also, I'm glad you think so highly of my behind. Cool to know I'm not the only curious gal in class. Despite herself, Mina could feel herself tearing up again, though she still managed to laugh at the comment. Haha, well, what can I say? I'm just glad you went along with my flirty banter. She leaned her head against Kada's arm. But to tell you the truth, there is someone I'm really interested in. Don't know if it's serious or not, but Kirishima, right? All at once, Mina's eyebrows snapped up in shock, making Kada laugh. Haha, knew it. The moment I heard you two went to the same middle school, I knew something had to be up. Mina blushed and scratched her cheek. Haha, is it that obvious? Kada chuckled as they finally made it to the nurse's office. Well, if anything does come of that, let me know, okay? I'll be the first to congratulate ya. Thanks. Back up in the stands, after seeing Kada take Mina to the back, Bulkhead immediately stood up and began walking toward the exit, though not without making his intentions known. I'm gonna go see Mina. Gotta make sure she's alright after that. Of course, Buck. Orion approved. Do what you have to do. Just be sure to go easy on Kada, okay? Kyoka piped up. I'm sure she didn't mean it. Buck waved to her with a grin. It's alright, I know. Honestly, I'm glad that she was the one who brought Mina to the back. Shows good character, helping your opponents. He started sprinting toward the exit, calling back, I'll be back as soon as possible. Take your time, Stella exclaimed before sighing sadly. Wow, that really got serious for a moment there. Yeah, poor Mina. Suyu agreed. And poor Kada, too, Ribbit. Both of them must have felt awful after that. It seems that Kada's ankylosaurus tail has the proportional strength of a full-sized one even though it's downsized to fit her body. Izuku mumbled as he continued to take down notes. Knowing this, she's intentionally practiced to hold back that strength so that she doesn't kill anyone. If an ankylosaurus club is powerful enough to break a T-Rex's femur and do even worse to other dinosaurs, there's no question that anything worse would have resulted in. Alright, Izuku, we get the picture. Sid interrupted, placing his hand on Izuku's head. I think the last thing anyone wants to hear right now is the D word. Denki coughed into his hand. HKK, that's fuchsicide, HKHK. Well, after that display, I say we shouldn't let this hot streak cool. Present Mike announced as the next two competitors took the field. Let's get on with the sixth match, shall we? At this, Izuku and Tenya immediately perked up. Oh, Yaoyorozu and Jiro are up next. The latter exclaimed. Woo. Bout time. Jeff rose out of his seat and cheered as he saw the two girls come out into the stadium. Come on gals, show 'em what you're made of. Let's go, Momo. Sadie cheered as well, with Brian standing to show his support for Kyoka. And remember, Wendy's back home rooting for you, too. Back at the Autobot base, said city speaker was watching intently from her seat, with Springer and Red Alert flanking her as the competitors took the field. Of course, they had been concerned for Mina before this, and they still were. But now, Windblade's focus was intently on what her protege was going to do in this matchup. It's best friends versus one another, she thought to herself. Kyoka, Momo, this is a competition, so it's best not to let personal feelings get in the way. She smiled as Momo appeared on screen. And Momo, remember what I taught you about hesitation being a hindrance. Don't think before you act, think while you act. This match should be interesting. Red Alert muttered. Springer gave a short chortle. Hey, almost as interesting as May's little commercial for your inventions. Red cleared his vents and turned his head away. Ahem, that was completely different. She was simply taking the advice I gave her to heart. What, to use your friends to your advantage? Both of you, hush. Windblade laced her hands together as Present Mike started the introductions. It's starting. With both girls now on the battlefield, it was time to get things underway. I'd argue that these two ladies going up against one another must have been fate dealing a trick card, given how they're such good friends. Present Mike informed, generating a bit of murmuring in the crowd. Coming in from the west side, we've got a young lady who I'm honestly a really big fan of. Of course, I respect anyone who uses sound as a weapon. From Class 1A, it's the other first place contestant, Kyoka Jiro. Kyoka rolled her eyes at the compliment. Gee, what an honor to have him cheering me on. Versus, the great creator. She was admitted because of recommendations, and I'm sure we can all see why. Also from Class 1A, it's Momo Yaoyorozu. Momo stood tall and confident, knowing that there would be no hard feelings between her and her best friend no matter what happened. Just so you know, Kyoka, I've taken your words to heart. She extended her hand and activated her quirk. And I will not be holding back. Kyoka brought up her jacks, ready for anything. Good, because I won't either. You're just lucky I can't use any gear, otherwise you'd probably be in for it real bad. I don't doubt it. Momo had created a steel bow staff in her hand, taking hold in a combat-ready stance. In fact, in that regard, I suppose I'm at an advantage. Doesn't matter. Kyoka smirked. I'll beat ya, with or without weapons. Ready, begin. The two ladies gave simultaneous battle cries as they charged one another, going in immediately for a close-range attack. Momo went to strike first, twirling her staff to build up momentum before bringing it in at Kyoka's side for a hard swing. But then, CHNK. Momo's arm jolted back as one of Kyoka's jacks went right into her elbow, triggering her funny bone. MMMPH. Really? Kyoka dashed behind her opponent and immediately slammed into her shoulder first, moving straight toward the boundary line. Sorry, but all's fair in love and war. Thunk. But before she could make it, Momo prodded her staff into the ground and flipped over, causing Kyoka to trip up. Once the punk rocker was on the ground, Momo wasted no time in whirling herself around and pointing the tip of her bow staff in Kyoka's face. My thoughts exactly. Do you yield? Not in a million years. Kyoka shot her jacks up toward Momo's eyes, making her gasp and flinch. HA. Made ya look. And just like that, Kyoka wrapped her jacks around the staff and yanked it from Momo's grasp, tossing it out of the ring. You little trickster. I know, right. Kyoka winked back before kicking her legs up and slamming them into Momo's midsection, the creator stumbling back as Kyoka landed perfectly on her feet. Now, take this. Quick as a flash, Kyoka sent both jacks out at once, aiming for Momo's stomach. Come on, Momo, get it together. Don't stop thinking. You need to cover that's it. Momo activated her quirk beneath her shirt mere seconds before Kyoka struck, causing the latter to recoil as her jacks plugged into something unexpected. What the, whoa. Kyoka flushed a little as Momo took the jacks out by hand. Be careful. Those are sensitive. That made the raven-haired beauty crack a small grin. Sorry, but I figured you wouldn't want these in this. She lifted her shirt, showing off the thick material she had just made covering her midsection. Kevlar. Very useful, wouldn't you say? That took Kyoka by surprise a little, but nevertheless, she kept her own smile. Neat trick, Yao Momo. But you still might wanna keep your guard up. Kyoka moved both of her jacks and jabbed them into Momo's hand, taking her opponent aback and making her release them. So back to that one, are we? Well then, as she shook the tingly feeling out of her hand, Momo created something else with the other, an item which made Kyoka's eyes widen. It was a rather large hammer with a long handle, almost like one of those comically oversized ones you'd see in an anime, only with a lot less yellow and pink. Let's see how you handle this. Momo charged in once again, lifting the stainless steel weapon high over her head before bringing it down. Kyoka was able to dodge roll out of the way, but Momo wouldn't give up her chase, closing in on her with every swing. Whoa, okay, did not take into account that you're your own hammer space. As Kyoka kept avoiding her, though, she noticed that they were slowly making their way toward the boundary. She smirked once they were close enough, one more swing and she could possibly trip Momo out. Sorry, Momo, but it's time to end this. Kyoka bowled out of the way as the hammer came down again, before sending one of her jacks down to wrap around Momo's leg and pull it out from under her. Sure enough, the creator tripped, but what happened next truly took the punk rocker off guard. Momo slammed the hammer head into the cement floor and, using her momentum, she swung herself around the handle, bringing her foot in for a swinging kick straight into Kyoka's side and sending her toppling over. Kyoka landed hard, but she knew that she could still go. Oh ho, not bad, but I'm not. Jiro. Kyoka gasped as Midnight spoke up, pointing her flog at her. You're out. Kyoka's eyes widened as she looked down to the ground, and indeed, she had landed with her upper body over the boundary line. It took a few seconds for her to process this, a brief feeling of sadness and a bit of anger flowing through her. Though these feelings were directed more to herself than her opponent. Damn, wish I could have done more. Well, there's always next year. Just then, she saw a familiar hand extend down to help her out, making her smile up at its owner. Hey, that was great, Momo. Didn't see it comin'. Momo grasped Kyoka's hand and helped her to her feet, reaching out to her shoulder with her free hand. Thank you very much, but you were very impressive yourself. I was actually caught off guard by quite a few of your moves. You weren't even able to use sound in this battle and you were still quite impressive. Aw, shucks. Kyoka glanced away, rubbing her neck sheepishly. Well, glad to know I managed to throw you off even a little. Honestly, you've really improved in terms of your combat. Well, Windblade's always telling me to keep my mind going and to not hesitate, even in high-stress situations. If I can't let my creativity flow constantly, then what chance do I have if I suddenly stall in the middle of something important? The rocker gave a single nod. Yeah, true that. Well, guess my run at the top's been cut down. Momo put on a sly smile and gave a wink. Hey now, I thought you said no hard feelings. That earned her a playful jab from Kyoka, the duo laughing at their own banter before Momo politely bowed. But really, thank you for the battle. And don't worry, there's always next year to look forward to. Yeah, and let's both keep giving it our all until then. Kyoka offered a fist bump, which Momo was all too happy to reciprocate. And just like that, the crowd erupted with joyous cheering at the sign of respect, with Present Mike even weeping a little in the commentary booth. Sniff, it's enough to bring a tear to your eye. Two best friends being great sports with one another and promising to keep improving themselves in the future. He blew his nose in a hanky before exclaiming, Eraser, your students are amazing. This reminds me of our days back in school together, man. You start reminiscing here and I'll mummify you. Back at the base, Springer pumped a fist high into the air, all while Red Alert smiled in approval. Oh ho, yes. Now that's what I call a pretty exciting match. The triple changer craned his head over to Windblade, expecting her to be ecstatic. So, Windblade, you must be feeling pretty, huh? Much to his surprise, though, Windblade almost seemed close to crying. She didn't seem sad, though, more like proud. Red Alert, though, didn't see this. Windblade, why are you so upset? I'm not upset, Red. Windblade put on a smile, trying to regain her composure as she stared at the two ladies on screen with utter happiness. Far from it, actually. Once again, her focus was on Momo, all while thinking to herself, you've got a long way to go yet, Momo, but you're already off to a fantastic start. You will be a great hero, I'm sure of it. Up in the stands, Izuku's shoulders slumped and he let out a sigh. Man, Kyoka lost. Indeed, but it was quite the hard-fought battle. Tenya reminded with a smile. It's understandable to be upset, but we should all be quite proud of Jiro as well, along with Yaoyorozu, of course. They both gave an astounding effort, after all. He stood up out of his seat, ushering for Izuku to join him. Come, let us give them our praise, and see if we can find Uraraka to wish her well before her match, as well. It was then that Izuku remembered something. Ochako seemed to be a bit out of sorts when she had left. He was honestly a bit surprised when she barely made a sound when leaving, not even asking them to wish her luck. They probably wouldn't have noticed if Kyoka and the others hadn't all gone with her. Yeah. Izuku nodded. I wanna go see her and Kyoka, too. And besides, our match will be directly after Uraraka's, so probably best to get prepared. But before they could leave, Sid piped up behind them, "Aw, come on guys. You two really ain't gonna stay to watch Jiro's match." He pumped his fist with an eager smirk. "He's gonna beat the snot out of that copycat, for sure." Orion gave the young man a disapproving glance. "Sid, I appreciate your rooting for Jiro, but I don't necessarily approve of you wanting to see that other boy hurt." Well, it's not like that, Pax. Sid caught himself, making Stella facepalm at his near slip-up. "I just want Jiro to win, especially since this guy's been stepping on his toes all day." "Okay, let's see what we got for ya next." Sid immediately snapped his head down to the field when he heard Present Mike's voice, seeing his red-headed partner standing opposite the white-haired copycat. The seventh matchup includes two completely redundant quirks. One of M's a passionate, manly fighter made of steel. The hero courses Tetsu versus a passionate manly fighter made of rock. The hero courses Jiro Kirishima. To say that Sideswipe was galled at the announcement was an understatement. With widened eyes and slack jaw, he couldn't believe what he had just heard. "Are you kidding me? Even their intros are the same." Without warning, Sid jumped down to the edge and placed his foot on it, shaking his fist up at the commentary booth. And what the pit was that about his quirk being redundant? "I'll make ya eat those words, ya loudmouth, URK." Stella had gotten up from her seat and pulled Sid back in a chokehold, sneering angrily at him as she forced him back down into a seat. "If anyone is being a loudmouth here, it's you. Now get back in your seat, you're causing a scene." Sadie and the others stared at the scene awkwardly as Sid squirmed to get out of Stella's grasp, the pink-haired young woman shifting her eyes to Izuku and Tenya. "Maybe it's best if you leave now so you're not lumped in with us." "Right." Both boys echoed before fleeing the scene. "Maybe we should go visit Mina in the med room, see how she's doing," Kyoka suggested as she and Momo walked through the halls. "Oh, definitely, but since we're so close to the waiting rooms, perhaps we should wish Ochako luck first," Momo noted as well. After all, she's been very silent as of late. Kyoka's eyebrows rose at that. "You saw, too, huh?" "Yeah, since we left the stands, she hasn't said much. It's kinda worrying me, honestly. I wonder if there's anything wrong." It wasn't long before the two girls found themselves at the waiting room where the brunette was, with Momo taking a deep breath as she reached for the knob. Well, only one way to find out. The two girls walked in, and were immediately greeted by Ochako's voice. "Hey ladies. What a surprise. Both of you guys were awesome out there." Oh, hey Ocha, whoa." Kyoka did a double take and Momo gasped at the sight of their friend's expression. It was a combination of stress and nervousness, her brows furrowed as a shaky smile forced its way to her face. Her pupils were dilated, no doubt in fear, and even her complexion was a bit pale. "What's wrong with your face?" A bit of confusion became mixed in with all of her emotions. My face. "Oh, it's nothing, I think." Momo came forward and immediately sat next to her friend, placing her hands on her shoulders. "Okay, Ochako, let's take some deep breaths. It's obvious that you're incredibly stressed, but you need to calm down before you pass out. Breath in." Ochako followed her instructions. "Good, now release." "Huh, wow, thanks, Yaomomo." Ochako placed her hand on her forehead. "I didn't realize how lightheaded I was getting. Hey, I guess I'm not great at hiding how nervous I am." Kyoka approached the table, leaning against it. "Yeah, I get it. After all, you're facing Bakugo." She sneered at the very thought of him. "Not exactly what I'd call an easy match." "Yeah, I'm kinda scared." The gravity user put on a hopeful smile. "But after watching all of your matches down here, I feel a little better." Instantly, Kyoka's lips curled into a smirk. "Especially Ida's, right? Ha ha ha. Yeah, that was great, just don't tell him I said that, okay?" Just then, the door clicked open again, where the topic of conversation came strolling in. "Don't tell what to who now?" Tenya asked, with Izuku following him in. Oh, Iida, Deku, you guys here." Ochako and the girls stood up to greet them. "Yeah, we wanted to see you off before your match." Izuku nodded before his attention went to Momo and Kyoka. "And we wanted to congratulate you two on your match. It was very good, I was on the edge of my seat the whole time." Kyoka's smile became somewhat sheepish as she twirled a jack around her finger. Ah, thanks Green Bean. That means a lot, kinda sucks that I lost, but hey, there's no shame in losing to a friend. My thoughts exactly. Tenya supported. And besides, both of you fought incredibly hard, so there's no shame in that, either. Yeah, you were awesome out there, Kyoka. Izuku affirmed before bowing his head to Momo. And so were you, Yaoyorozu. Good luck against Kiryu in the next round. Momo kept her smile, though felt a bit of nervous sweat trickle down her head. Ha, thank you, Midoriya, something tells me I'll need it. Ochako tilted her head to the boys. So why aren't you guys up there watching the matches? Well, other than our own match being after yours, let's just say that Kirishima's fight is gonna drag on for a while. Izuku reached for a remote and turned on the TV hanging on the wall, where they were immediately greeted by the sight of Jiro and Tetsu punching the crap out of each other, with sparks flying off of them with every hit. I thought you were supposed to be strong. Funny, I heard the same lie about you. The 5 teens deadpanned at the two hardened boys and their screaming banter before Ochako brought her hands together. That means I'm next. This is it, my fight. Momo reached out once again, placing a hand on her friend's arm. Ochako, I'm sure it'll be okay, she reassured before looking to Izuku hopefully. I mean, there's no way that Bakugo would use the full power of his explosions on her of all people, right? No, he would. Izuku said bluntly, making Ochako whimper. Kyoka was horror-struck at Izuku's answer. That response was way too sudden, Izuku. Sorry, but it's the truth. Besides, everyone's gunning for the top spot in these games. The Greenette's expression hardened at the thought. Even if she wasn't fighting Kacchan, I don't think anyone would hold back. He approached Ochako and brought out his notebook, much to her confusion. Uraraka, you and the others have helped me so much in these past couple of months, so now it's time I return the favor, and maybe I can do it with this. He went to hand her the notebook. I've got a plan for how you can use your quirk against Kacchan, it's all in here. I know it might not be much, but I did my best to put this together, so please. That brightened the mood a bit in the room, with Tenya giving 2 thumbs up. Hey now, what a way to think ahead, Midoriya. This is perfect, right, Uraraka? There was a momentary pause before Ochako gave her answer. Thank you so much for doing that. She pressed her fingers together, giving Izuku an apologetic smile. But no, sorry. A collective gasp went through the room, her friends all visibly stunned at the answer. What? But why not? Kyoka exclaimed. This could be your best bet to get that asshat out of the competition. I know, Ochako bowed to Izuku. And I can't thank you enough for putting that plan together, Deku, really. You, all of you have been nothing but wonderful to me since we became friends. I keep seeing that over and over again. She raised her head back up, her sympathetic gaze reaching all of them. Over the course of these past couple of weeks, we've been training and relying on one another, but now that I think about it, I might have been relying a bit too much on you guys. Her eyes shifted over to Tenya. That's why, when I overheard Iida say that he was trying his best to beat you, Deku, I actually felt kind of embarrassed for myself. The 4 teens were silent as Ochako made her speech, with Izuku merely muttering her name. Uraraka. So it's fine, really. Ochako made her way to the door, ready to confront whatever Bakugo had in store for her. Everyone's facing their future and giving this their best. That means we're all rivals. So, Yaomomo, hearing her nickname made Momo give Ochako her full attention. I'll see you in the semis. And Deku, she turned around and gave both of them a thumbs up. Guess I'll see you in the finals. The duo were surprised by Ochako's confidence, even as they saw her shaking like a leaf. She was scared, but she was also determined to see this through. In that respect, Momo felt quite proud of her, and decided to give a retort. I see. Well, not if I see him in the finals first. Hey, I'm not gonna lose to you, Yaomomo. Ochako returned. Or you either, Deku. Let's give it our all. And on that, the group could wholeheartedly agree. Several minutes later, Momo and Kyoka had returned to the stands, along with Izuku and Tenya. After what had been said down in the waiting room, there was no way the boys were going to settle for just watching Ochako's match on television. Of course, they had to get through the current match to get there. Indeed, Jiro and Tetsu were still throwing fists and punching one another with everything they had. Will this ever end? Sunny groaned. Come on man, have faith. Sid insisted, even as everyone else moaned in boredom. I'm sure that Jiro's gonna, clang. Huh. The young man's eyes were brought down to the battlefield, where both spiky-haired teens had just punched each other right in the face at the exact same time. Both of them fell and unhardened, their mouths hanging open as their eyes rolled into the back of their heads. Midnight took to the field, all while Sid watched in disbelief. And no, don't tell me. Wow, that hurt me and all I'm doing, is watching these guys. Is it over? Present Mike waited with bated breath as Midnight checked them over, though he could just tell that neither boy was about to move or get up. The hardheads look like they're KO'd. But the question remains, who's the winner? It wasn't long before Midnight gave that answer, raising her hand and declaring, they're both down. It's a draw. Sid, understandably, wasn't too happy with the ruling. Oh, come on. I call shenanigans. Practically everyone within earshot was once again staring at the disguised Autobot as he shook his fist in ire. I demand a do-over so Kirishima can show that copycat punk what's up. As if to answer him, Midnight followed up. When the contestants recover from the battle, the winner will be determined by a simple contest. Perhaps arm wrestling. That will suffice. Thank you. As Sid plopped back down in his seat, though, he couldn't help but overhear what some of the pro-heroes themselves thought of the match. Weird, they're basically copies of each other, but they both proved how determined they were to win. Yeah, you gotta appreciate the passion they brought to the ring. It's inspiring, really. I could use a sidekick like that. This made Sid smirk to himself, nodding in approval. Of course, they'd see how awesome Jiro is. Dude's quirk is totally off the chain, and his hairstyle's eye-catching. He opened his eyes, balling a fist as he stared hopefully up at the sky. Kirishima, don't worry, there's still hope for ya yet. The crowd watched as Jiro and Tetsu were carted off to the back by the medical bots, leaving the field clear to begin the next match. While we wait for Tetsu and Kirishima to recover, we'll move on to the next battle. Up on the big screen, Ochako and Bakugo's pictures appeared and they themselves entered the stadium, much to the crowd's excitement. However, the same couldn't be said for the rest of 1A. Ribbit, this might be the most disturbing matchup. Suyu croaked. I know. I kind of don't wanna watch it. Toru hugged her arms, rubbing them in discomfort. Kyoka, for her part, was clenching her seat's armrest nervously, pursing her lips as Ochako took her place down on the battlefield. She was startled a bit when she felt a hand on her shoulder, but once she saw it was Izuku, she let down her guard. I know, I feel the same. The one for all user affirmed. But we're still gonna make sure Uraraka knows we believe in her, right? The punk rocker blinked a couple times before giving him a resolute nod. Yeah, you're right. She cupped her hands and called out to their friend, Ochako. You got this. Take him down, Uraraka. Yaoyorozu waved as well. You have our support. Do your best. Izuku said. You got this. On the field, Ochako could hear the shouts of support that were coming from her teammates, and it made her feel a bit better, even as she was facing down the ashen blonde giving her a death glare. You guys, I won't let you down. The 8th and final battle of the first round of matchups is about to begin. Present Mike exclaimed, focusing on Bakugo first. Now for our fighters, he was kind of a hothead in middle school, and just look at that determined face. From the hero course, Katsuki Bakugo. Versus, the Gravity Gal herself, and who I'm personally rooting for, also from Class 1A, Ochako Uraraka. As the intros were finalized, Ochako took a deep breath and put on her own resolute expression, matching Bakugo's as Present Mike gave the word. Let the 8th match begin. Chapter 30. Uraraka vs Bakugo, Midoriya vs Iida. Megatron had been right, the second bracket had been more fruitful than the first when it came to combat. Granted, the Decepticon leader had a feeling that there were still better matches yet to come, but so far, the last 3 matches had proven to be more entertaining than the first 4. The only gripe that the Emperor of Destruction had was this wild showing of sportsmanship that the humans exchanging between one another after their matches. If this were the gladiatorial arena, we would be wasting no time in getting to the executions, he thought to himself as he kept his optics focused on the screens. Their nobleness irritates me. Such heroic nonsense. My thoughts exactly, my liege. Starscream concurred, though he seemed disgusted by that fact. These beings, especially the heroes, are far too sensitive and soft. Oh, it's all about how you play the game, bah. What matters is victory. Unicronus stepped in and held up a hand. Yeah, we get it. Trust me, it sickens me, too. But Lord Megatron, you may wish to keep a close watch on this next match. The Decepticon general pointed to the screen and zoomed in on the ashen blonde taking the field. This one. This is the other boy who's been taking the festival by storm along with Todoroki and Midoriya. His name is Katsuki Bakugo, and he's got a power that's truly potent. Leaning forward in his seat, Megatron rubbed his chin curiously. Does he, now? Yeah, apparently he can create explosions via the nitroglycerin in his sweat. Barricade piped up. Sweat. As in, what organics secrete from their pores when they overheat. Megatron's lips curled in disgust as he sat back. Repulsive. I know, right, Swift agreed. The kid's freakishly strong, though. He's come in third for every event so far, but he's aiming for the top. She gave a short chuckle as she added, hey, the little scrap even announced that he was gonna win the whole thing during the opening ceremony. You should have seen it, Lord Megatron, the entire school pretty much turned on him in an instant. As revolted that Megatron was by the perspiration powers of the blonde, he had to admit, he was intrigued once more. Did he, now? The more he inspected Bakugo's face, the more he recognized something within the boy's eyes. There was arrogance, anger, and irritation all in play, but above all else, there was determination, the likes of which Megatron hadn't seen in a long time. It reminds me of myself in a way. A smirk came to his lips as he prepared for whatever came next. Alright, young Katsuki Bakugo. Let's see what you're made of. Back on Earth, Ochako took a deep breath as she prepared to face her foe. This was it, the moment of truth. If she didn't beat Bakugo, she could kiss her sports festival run goodbye. And after being carried here via brainwashing, there was absolutely no way she would go down without a fight. I'm gonna become a pro. I'll sign with a good agency and make plenty of money. Then I'll be able to let my parents have an easy life. She remembered her vow that day in the hallway, the one where she poured her heart out to Deku, Kyoka, and the others. It was a promise that she wasn't going to let go of, not even for a moment. Daddy, Mom, this is for you. Just then, Bakugo's voice brought her out of her thoughts. You're the one who screws around with gravity, right, pink cheeks. Pink cheeks. Ochako recoiled. Dang it, not him too. The explosive blonde gave her a warning glare. Well, if you're gonna give up, do it now. 'Cause I'm not gonna hold anything back. He didn't receive a verbal response, though. Instead, Ochako got herself together and matched his gaze, which was all the answer he needed. HMPH, so it's like that, huh? I can respect that, facing her death with dignity. Up in the stands, as the rest of Class 1A and the Autobots reluctantly watched, Momo felt compelled to ask, Midoriya, what exactly was that strategy you came up with for Uraraka? Indeed, I'm also quite curious. Tenya added, all while Izuku's eyes went to his notebook. How would you have it to where she would have an advantage over Bakugo? Well, honestly, it wasn't much of a plan. Izuku gripped his hero notebook, staring at the burned cover that Bakugo himself had burnt with a small explosion. Kachan's so strong. When it comes to close combat, he almost never has any openings. And the more he moves, the more he sweats, which just makes his quirk more powerful. Jazz let out a whistle at that. Man, sounds like the dude don't got any kinda weakness. Izuku's brows furrowed down to the battlefield, where Uraraka and Bakugo continued to stand off. At first glance, yes. But if Uraraka can touch him, she can make him weightless with her quirk. Then, she could push him effortlessly out of the ring. Kyoka tilted her head at that. But wouldn't he still be able to use his explosions? He could just move himself away from the boundary, even in midair. Well, yes, but it all depends on what trajectory he blasts in. One wrong move, and it could mean his downfall. Sadie nodded in understanding. I see. Sounds like a fairly simple solution, but let's see what she has in mind for this match. The moment Present Mike gave the word to begin the match, Ochako took off running, keeping herself bent down low toward the ground. Oh, and there she goes. Giving up isn't an option for me. Ochako hollered her response. Kyoka pumped her fist, exclaiming, "Wow. Look at her go. It's a great start." Denki concurred. "And if she touches him, she's golden." "I doubt that'll be easy, though," Sid muttered, folding his arms in trepidation. He saw just how serious Bakugo was down there, and it was obvious that he wasn't playing around. "Just watching that Bakugo kid, I can tell he won't let her get close." Izuku nodded, watching intently for what would happen next. "Exactly. Which is why he won't dodge. Instead, he'll focus his energy on a counter-attack." Down on the battlefield, Bakugo simply narrowed his eyes at Ochako, all while small sparks began popping out of his hand. "And now, you die." He began pulling his right hand back, and Ochako's eye widened. "There it is," she recalled, her mind going back to that initial hero training and how Izuku countered Bakugo's right hook. Ochako started to bring her hands together. "If I can just dodge this move," boom. The second Ochako went to duck, Bakugo let loose, the blast consuming her in fire and smoke. The spectators, including the Autobots, all gasped in shock, while 1A collectively called out, "Uraraka." Optimus held his composure, though. His concern for Ochako wasn't any less than that of his team or the students, but he had a feeling that the brunette wouldn't go charging in like that if she didn't have a plan. Still, it's evident that this Bakugo will not show her any mercy. I suppose it isn't surprising, though, considering that brashness he has about him. Thankfully, Ochako had been able to avoid the brunt of the blast, though her face was now lightly dusted in soot. "Stupid. Saw it coming and I still couldn't get out of the way." However, it was then she noticed that she had a good opportunity in front of her. Time to put phase 2 into motion. "Ya shoulda dropped out of the match." Bakugo growled as he walked through the lingering smoke, trying to locate his target. Just then, he saw some vague object coming through the haze, and the moment he saw a bit of blue and white, he let off another blast. "There's no way you can beat ME." He slammed his hand down and, boom, he saw that it was just Ochako's jacket, his eyebrows shooting up at his error. What he didn't see, though, was Ochako lunging out from behind, her hand raised and ready to strike. "Whoa." She flung her jacket over as a decoy. Present Mike shouted. "What incredibly quick thinking." Ochako brought her hand closer, clenching her teeth to steel herself. "This is my chance. I can make him float." Boom. But it was too late. Bakugo saw her coming out the corner of his eye and whipped around, blasting her back with great force. Thankfully, the gravity user was able to tumble into a landing on her feet. Nevertheless, the students were left in awe. "Whoa. Talk about quick reflexes," Shiro commented. "Yeah, that reaction time is nuts." Sato agreed. "It's impressive, Ribbit, but also kinda scary." Suyu added. Sunny pursed his lips in worry. Ochako can't get the drop on him. And because her quirk involves physical contact in order to work, his reflexes put her at a big disadvantage here. Despite that disadvantage, though, Ochako just kept pressing forward, which Bakugo was able to counter with ease. Too slow. Boom. The audience could only watch in horror as the girl was consumed again, only to re-emerge with only minor scrapes. "I've got you." Boom. Ow. Another blast, and this one sent Ochako flying back a bit farther. Ojiro was beginning to feel a bit uncomfortable. Good lord, is she okay? Just then, he felt something nuzzle into his back, catching him off guard. But when he saw it was Toru, he let that guard down, knowing that the invisible girl was just as, if not even more uncomfortable than him right now. "I can't watch. Tell me when it's over." Boom. 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 Again and again the blasts came and went, and yet still, Ochako didn't give in despite her increasing injuries. Somehow, they were still small, but they were beginning to add up. "This isn't over yet." Boom. Once again, Ochako disappeared into ash and smoke, only to reappear and still running toward her opponent. Bakugo couldn't help but be a bit curious as to how she was able to keep going, but he couldn't stop now. He whipped his hand and let off a blast, almost as if he were smacking her away with it. Boom. Up in the commentary booth, Present Mike couldn't help but cringe with every blast, though Aizawa seemed unmoved by the actions. Seems like she's not resting between attacks despite being constantly blown up, the poor girl. Her feint didn't work earlier, so, is she getting desperate? Sadie questioned, mostly to herself. But then, she noticed something odd. Orion's eyes were alternating between the match below, and up toward the sky for some reason. Sir. Is everything okay? What are you looking at? Orion hummed, giving her a smile as he nudged his head upward. See for yourself. The pink-haired Autobot spared a glance up, and what she saw made her jaw drop. Oh, my word. MMHM. The Autobot leader nodded. That's what she's been doing. I don't believe it. Sadie's smile returned. Ochako, you smart little cookie. However, the general audience still weren't completely comfortable with what was going on down on the battlefield. One hero even stood up and called out, hey, shouldn't one of the teachers step in? This is getting too rough, don't you think? If anything, though, neither Smintos or Midnight said or did anything. In fact, they seemed more annoyed by the hero's comment. Urk, Ochako groaned as she got to her hands and knees, seeing Bakugo looming over her within the smoke. And yet still, she charged at him. Boom. This is shameful. A hero with blonde hair stood up in the crowd, donned in a yellow and green suit with a long yellow cape flowing behind him. He also wore a distinct, winged headpiece over his forehead. Listen, kid, you really wanna be a hero. He pointed an accusing finger down at Bakugo. Then stop acting like a bully. If you're so good, just send her out of bounds. Boom. But Bakugo simply ignored him, keeping his focus on Ochako instead. Stop toying with the girl and ends this match. Yeah, you heard the guy. Next to him, a heroine dressed like a poodle stood up and raised her fists in ire, and before long, the rest of the audience was jeering against Bakugo. Present Mike noted that, and couldn't help but be like-minded in the situation. The crowd is now booing Bakugo, and honestly, I kinda agree with what they're saying, oof. Without warning, Aizawa elbowed Present Mike in the face and out of the way so he could grab the microphone. Ow. Hey, whoa, what the crap? Grabbing the mic to the best of his ability, Aizawa called the hero out. Where is the man who started this uproar? Are you a pro? At his question, the crowd became silent once again, and the hero from before suddenly felt very small after being aimed at. Because if you're being serious, you can go home and hang up your cape. I'd suggest looking into another career. Even the students were confused as to what their homeroom teacher was saying. Anyone know what he's talking about? Izuku asked. Bakugo's fierceness is an acknowledgement of his opponent's strength. Aizawa explained as the process repeated down on the battlefield, with Bakugo blasting and Uraraka doing her best to avoid them. He knows she deserves to have made it this far, so he's making sure he does whatever it takes to keep her at bay and come out on top. Seriously. Kyoka shouted, springing out of her seat before being held back by Izuku and Tenya, all while kicking and screaming. You're gonna excuse that asshole's behavior on the grounds that it's some sorta twisted form of respect. What the hell, Aizawa? Kyoka, please calm down. Izuku urged. Now you're the one causing a scene. Tenya furthered. Orion stood up and made his way to the front row, saying, Kyoka, that is enough. He didn't say it with force or with a snap in his voice, but with a commanding tone that made the perplet stop immediately. I understand that this is a frustrating situation. But in truth, I believe that your teacher has a point. Kyoka's jaw dropped as Optimus gazed down at Bakugo, seeing the boy's eyes. In truth, I sense no malice behind his attacks. Of course, they are brutal and unforgiving, but at the same time, he is doing it in order to win, not because he is bullying her. If that were the case, I sense that he would be far crueler than he is being now. There was a short silence before Izuku nodded. Orion's right, Kyoka. Remember, Kachan's doing this for the sake of his advancement, and Uraraka's doing the same. They're both giving it they've got without holding back. He sent her a sympathetic gaze as the punk rocker lowered her head. Isn't that the point of the sports festival? Well, yeah, but he could at least be less mean about it. Kyoka huffed. Either way, you shouldn't worry about it. Orion went on, taking everyone by surprise again as he lifted his head toward the sky. After all, Ochako has a plan. Down on the field, Ochako breathed hard as she collected herself, having done the best to her ability up to this point. I think, it's about time. Her words made Bakugo do a double take as she prepared to bring her hands together. Thank you, Bakugo, for keeping your eyes focused on me. I cannot blame Bakugo or anyone with an untrained eye for not noticing. Orion continued with a smile. But it is surprising that none of the professional heroes took notice of what was happening from the stands. If they had, they would have seen Ochako's strategy in action. Jeff, with a furrowed brow, looked up to see what his leader was talking about. "Op, what you talkin', Bo? Oh, the Autobot lieutenant lowered his sunglasses, his jaw falling open at the sight. Holy scrap. Soon enough, everyone had caught sight of it, and their reaction was much the same as Jeff's was. Indeed. Prime explained. Ochako stayed low to the ground as she ran, meaning that Bakugo's blasts tore up the battlefield as she stealthily avoided his attacks. Thus, the debris became weapons for her. After that, she simply had to keep him focused on her by attacking relentlessly without rest. Rendering him oblivious to, well, that. High up in the air, floating above the battlefield, was all the debris that Bakugo had blasted up, the hunks of cement hanging precariously in midair thanks to Ochako's quirk. There were thousands of stones, big and small, some even as large as boulders. And, after judging it worthy to be used, Ochako brought her fingertips together, and released them all. Yeah. All at once, the stones came falling straight down to the ground, making everyone in the audience yell in surprise. A meteor shower. Present Mike shouted. So now you notice. Aizawa grumbled. Izuku, still reeling from what he was seeing, felt a surge of adrenaline as the debris came down. She had thought of something. She had a plan all along. Amazing. Kyoka belted out a laugh and pumped her fists into the air. Haha. Holy crap, that's cool as hell. Go for it, Chaco. The brunette was already on that, though, dashing past the smaller pieces of debris as Bakugo craned his head up to the bigger pieces falling toward him. With this much debris, whether he's evading or counter-attacking, there will definitely be an opening. Ochako brought her hands together, making herself weightless. In that moment, I'll finally get close to him. Finally, she leapt forward, reaching out as Bakugo brought his right hand up. This is it. My shot. I'll win and be just like Deku. Ka-boom. The shock had hit Ochako so much, it was almost as if the blast had happened 3 different times. Nevertheless, all Bakugo did was let loose one massive explosion upward, one that encompassed the entirety of the meteor shower in one go. The burst was so huge that it whipped up a wind that blew through the whole stadium and sent Ochako flying back, making her tumble to the ground as she lost focus on her quirk. By the end, the debris was no more than dust, with a few smaller stray pieces clunking onto the ground or out onto the stadium roof. Ochako coughed, shakily getting onto her hands and knees, before Bakugo's voice sent a chill to her core. I figured you'd have some sorta stupid plan to beat me. You were friends with that damn nerd, after all. With horror etched into her features, Ochako trembled in place. Her attack had done nothing to him. It took him one shot. Everyone in the stands were also gutted to see that happen. Everyone in 1A, Izuku, Kyoka and the others included, were left slack-jawed, while the Autobots were put off by the whole ordeal. No. Ow. You gotta be kidding me. Sadie snapped. How powerful is this kid? I have no idea. Stella admitted. Present Mike gasped. Bakugo bangs out a huge demonstration of power. He blasted apart Uraraka's finisher and he's still untouched. Good God, I wish he didn't remind us. Kyoka grumbled, glaring down at the ashen blonde. Look at him, not even phased. How the hell is he this strong? Orion, however, saw differently. Indeed, Bakugo seemed to be keeping calm on the surface, but the moment he saw the boy's hands shaking, he knew that Ochako's attack must have made him worry, if only a little. He didn't expect her to do that, despite what he said otherwise. The Prime smiled with pride down to the gravity user, even as she trembled before her adversary. Your strategy proved sound, young Ochako. Had he not noticed it until a few moments later, perhaps the situation would have been different. Even still, Ochako wasn't feeling too proud of herself at the moment. I put everything I had into that move, but I wasn't good enough. She hung her head, both in disappointment in herself and in fatigue. Her injuries were small, but they were adding up, and adding onto the fact that she had been blown back hard by Bakugo's move, it was starting to become more than she could take. But even then, that wouldn't stop her. I can still stand, I will get up. And that's exactly what she did, even on her shaky legs. The sight made Bakugo smile in genuine anticipation. He couldn't remember the last time an opponent had put up this much of a fight. Alright then, time for us to get serious. Uraraka. He charged in, ready to meet her head to head. If Deku were in the ring, he wouldn't give up yet. Ochako went to do the same, but her legs buckled, giving out right from underneath her. Bakugo's eyes widened and he came to a stop just a few feet in front of where she went down. Despite her falling, she still showed signs of wanting to continue, though her dim eyes and weakened body would probably say otherwise. She's past her limit, but she wants to keep fighting. Damn. No, come on, get up. Ochako scolded herself, forcing her body to start crawling as her legs twitched. I wanna keep going, I can still fight. As she crawled, Bakugo took a ready stance in case she was still good to fight. And, as she kept going, Ochako suddenly felt a certain memory come rushing back to her. A very important one at that. When I grow up, big and strong, I'll help you and mommy out in any way I can. She could hear the soft, caring voice of her father, remembering his words quite clearly. I appreciate you wanting to help us, Ochako. But as your father, I'd be happier if you achieved your own dreams. That'd make us perfectly happy. And well, if you do make money, you can take us on a vacation. It was at that moment that Ochako's vision began to become a blur, her head slowly falling as she struggled to continue. I'll become a hero. And with that, the gravity user finally fell, leading Midnight to rush out onto the field. The R-rated hero raised a hand to Bakugo, holding him off as she knelt down and rested a hand on the brunette's back. Still barely conscious, there was only one word that Ochako could utter. Daddy. Midnight closed her eyes, quickly coming to her decision. Uraraka has been KO'd. She waved her hand to the victorious student. Bakugo advances to the second round. All at once, the whole stadium erupted into a massive uproar of cheers, no doubt still in awe of what had transpired before them. Damn, Kyoka muttered. No doubt about it, she gave it her all down there. Momo said, placing a hand over her chest. But, I just hope that she'll be okay. She will. Sadie stood up with Stella, the two clapping for the effort that their friend had put in. I know she will. The Autobot cadet nodded in agreement. She'll make a fine hero one day, that's for sure. Orion closed his eyes, going to sit back down in his chair. Without question, she will. I imagine that, with another year of training, she could very likely turn the tables on Bakugo if they meet in this same position once again. Still, can't deny that fight was something else. Jeff added as he saw the small medical bots coming down with the stretcher, all while Midnight helped Ochako onto it. The girls got spirit and determination to spare. Hey, down there. Tenya pointed toward the ring where, much to everyone's surprise, Bakugo had stayed, watching as Ochako was brought straight inside to Recovery Girl. The moment she was out of sight, though, the blonde turned around and went for his own exit. It would seem that, despite his attitude, perhaps Uraraka was able to garner some respect from Bakugo in that fight. He glanced over to Izuku, who watched the scene intently. Has he ever done something like this before? No, not really. Izuku scratched his chin, intrigued at the sight. Though to be quite honest, I have a feeling that Kachan would respect Uraraka's resolve not to give up in this situation. He held nothing back and neither did she, so, perhaps some respect was won. But Kyoka wasn't convinced. I don't buy it. There's no way someone who's that much of a jerkwad would respect someone just for that reason alone. Sid gave a shrug. Who can say? Different people work in different ways. He leaned over toward Kyoka, adding in a whisper, besides, you'd be surprised at how many mean or cranky guys are in the Autobot ranks and are still good guys in the end. Wow, really? Oh yeah, Sunny affirmed. The Lightning Strike Coalition force were probably the best example of this. Some of the most brutal warriors around, aside from Swoop, who's the brains of the bunch, but aside from that, y'all wouldn't be able to find better allies to protect y'all on the battlefield. He gave a cheeky smile and a shrug. Plus, they were a riot at parties. Kyoka pursed her lips at the sound of that. Brutal warriors who were also good guys. It was interesting, but at the same time, she wasn't about to excuse Bakugo just yet. He still bullied and likely even hurt Izuku in the past. For her, that was inexcusable. She let out a sigh and stood up. Well, in any case, I think I'm gonna go see how Ochako's doing before the next round gets started. I'll come with you. Izuku got up as well. Besides, our match is up next. Indeed, Tenya concurred. Though Kirishima and Tetsu's contest will be first, so, it might yet be a while. The rest of the class winced as the same thought went through their heads, hopefully not. Meanwhile, on the dark side, Starscream had to admit, he was thoroughly impressed by the battle he had seen. The previous 3 had been enjoyable, but once again, the young Katsuki Bakugo had managed to make himself stand out amongst the juvenile humans. Still, even with his fierceness and cunning, his personality still made him more of a wild card than anything else. Hero or not, that child is a danger to those around him. The Seeker thought to himself. Probably best to avoid him at all costs. And that's it for the first round. Present Mike gave a sigh as the cons watched Ochako get stretchered off of the field. And I was really rooting for her. Oh yeah, and I guess Bakugo is moving on. You're supposed to be unbiased, you know. Aizawa pointed out. Let's try to forget that depressing outcome. We'll be back with more matches soon, folks. Or not. As the voice hero announced the short break, Frenzy couldn't help but crack up. Ahahaha. Oh man, I love these two. They argue like a couple o' buzzartrons squawking at one another over a meal. Hee. Barricade gave a small chuckle of his own. Hey, yeah, though gotta say, that was probably the best match yet. Indeed, Z1 called, Bakugo, was truly impressive. Shadow Striker admitted, Z precision he has with his explosions is a sight to behold. It is obvious that he has practiced such maneuvers from an early age. Nitra swiveled around in her chair with a smirk, bringing her pointer fingers and thumbs together before pulling her hands apart, bringing up a hollow screen with Bakugo's profile on it. Oh, you've got no idea, Uraraka. Turns out, this Bakugo kid was pretty much gifted since his quirk emerged. Apparently, his parents' quirks mixed together inside him and created this explosion quirk, and when he got it, he was praised a scrap ton. Skywarp raised a curious eyebrow at that. Seriously, is he really that special? The Decepticon hacker glanced over toward the main screen. Considering what we just saw, Warp, what do you think? She received a grumble in response. Unicronus, for his part, bowed his head to Megatron. My lord, what did you think of this display? HMPH, it was very impressive, and quite entertaining on top of that. Megatron's optics focused onto Bakugo's face as he left the field, the boy's red eyes in a seemingly permanent glare even though he had one. The boy is cold and efficient, showing no signs of enjoying what he just did. It was all for the sake of victory, something that I can appreciate. However, I sense that his potential is still yet to be truly unlocked. This, understandably, took the Decepticons by surprise. My liege, what do you mean by that? Flatline asked. Quite simple, Flatline, the boy has been pampered and treated like a prodigy from a young age, and as such, while he has grown in that time, it also means he has stagnated at this current point in time. Megatron furrowed his brow, settling his chin upon his fist while leaning on the arm of his chair. And just by that expression, I can tell that he knows it. I saw his hands shaking when he took notice of the meteor attack, and that he hadn't expected his opponent to do something like that. So, you're saying that he's reeling from the fact that his fellow classmates are somehow able to excel when it comes to their quirks' growth during the semester, while he's stuck at the same level he started school as. Thundercracker deduced. Precisely, Thundercracker. The Decepticon leader acknowledged his underling's attentiveness. The boy wishes to become better, yet he has no clue how. And it is frustrating him to no end. Just then, on Megatron's end of the call, there came the sound of an automatic door opening, followed by a familiar voice, Lord Megatron. Shockwave spoke as he walked in, the Decepticons just barely being able to see him as he walked into frame. He gave a bow and continued, my apologies for the interruption, but I have news from Skyquake and Dreadwing. They have found an Autobot supply depot and wish for your audience. This got the commander's attention immediately. Is that so? If that is the case, then a base cannot be far behind. He stood up from his chair, setting his attention onto Starscream and Unicronus. I must leave for now. There are things of greater importance that require my attention. Starscream let out a silent sigh. Oh, thank Primus. Unicronus, on the other hand, gave a bow. Of course, my lord. Best of luck in locating that potential base. He gestured over to the other screen. We'll continue recording the festival for you to watch later. I have no doubt that there will be even better matches in the rounds to come. I'm sure. Inform me if anything of great importance occurs. Megatron, out. And with that, the screen turned off, leaving Starscream to give out a much more relieved sigh. Oh, for the sake of Sigma, I thought he would never leave. Swift and the other Decepticons all groaned in unison. We get it, you hate the guy. Would ya quit reminding us every 10 seconds? Back in the stadium, Izuku and Kyoka were walking through the halls on the way to the waiting room, fully expecting to find Ochako there. They had tried Recovery Girl's office first, and while they had been greeted by Kada and Mina, Ochako was nowhere to be seen. She actually left about a minute ago, guys. Kada had mentioned. I tried making conversation, but she didn't say much, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot weighing on her mind right now. No doubt about it, Kyoka agreed. Well, we'll be sure to take things gently with her when we see her. And there they were, headed hopefully to where their friend was. Kyoka, however, was beginning to worry. Not just about Ochako, but about the green bean walking next to her. He had been silent for most of the trek, wearing a rather solemn expression to boot. Izuku. Hey, there you are. Kyoka chuckled as he snapped his head up. Was worried you zoned out for a sec. You okay? Izuku put on a small, reassuring smile. Oh, yeah, no problems here, well, aside from thinking about Uraraka. She wanted to make it far so badly, she must be so upset and, Izuku trailed off as they passed a set of stairs, and when Kyoka saw who was coming up, she immediately realized why. Hey, Kachan. Bakugo grumbled, his eyes darting between the greenette and Kyoka. The hell are Yuyo or your girlfriend doing here, Deku? Both teens instantly blushed and shouted, she's not my boyfriend, girlfriend. God, fine, whatever. Does it look like I even care? Katsuki grumbled as he continued past them, earning a glare from Kyoka. Anyways, Deku, hope you were paying attention, because if you get to the finals, you'd better keep watching what I do. Taking pride in a victory like that. Kyoka spat back, relentlessly blowing up Uraraka despite you knowing she wanted to keep fighting. Bakugo whipped around, getting right in Kyoka's face. Listen, I get it, ya don't like me because I picked on that nerd in middle school. But to be freaking honest with ya, I couldn't care less about what happened in the past. We're living in the here and now, and right now, we gotta prove why we're here. His harsh scowl softened a bit, a small glint of respect laced in his voice. And as far as I'm concerned, Uraraka did that, she didn't back down from me, so I returned the favor. After that fight, she proved she's anything but frail. But then, he glanced toward Izuku. Thanks in no small part to you, I bet. Izuku blinked, tilting his head. What do you mean? Bakugo scoffed, turning to face Izuku fully. Don't play dumb with me, Deku, that was your idea, wasn't it? That meteor shower of hers. His brows furrowed at his former childhood companion. You would come up with something that annoying. Listen, if we end up in the finals. You're wrong. Izuku interrupted, his demeanor growing serious and taking Katsuki by surprise. That plan, Uraraka came up with it all on her own. I didn't know anything about it. If that battle was harder than you thought it'd be, then it's because of her strategy, not mine. Kyoka couldn't help herself, she smirked at the disbelief on Bakugo's face. Something tells me you did underestimate your classmates before now. She tapped her finger to her chin as the ashen blonde's expression twisted in annoyance. And let me see, you learned both Kirishima and Uraraka's names so far because of that, so progress is being made. Oh, shut the hell up. Bakugo spun around and began stomping off back to the stands, before he could get any more aggravated. Doesn't matter what comes my way, I'm still gonna make it to the finals, so I suggest you be prepared, Deku. Izuku had wanted to stay silent, but he couldn't. And I suggest you start giving people proper credit. That made the explosion user peer over his shoulder, locking eyes with the one-for-all inheritor briefly before mumbling an acknowledgement. With that, the two groups went their separate ways, with Izuku letting go of a breath he didn't know he was holding. Oh dear God, that was so stressful, oof. Yeah, but it was also amazing. Kyoka said with a hearty slap to the back, jabbing her fist into Izuku's chest. Dude, you totally let him have it. That was some of the best comeback material I've ever heard. Hehe, thanks, though I only spoke from the heart on that one, honestly. Sometimes, that's all you need to stand up to jerks like him. Kyoka reached up and ruffled his hair. I'm proud of ya, green bean. A small blush made its way to Izuku's cheeks, which he desperately tried to hide. Well, I try my best. Come on, the waiting room's not too far away. As they continued, though, their thoughts quickly went back to how Ochako was doing. Uraraka, she must be so devastated. Kyoka could feel the solemn atmosphere herself, too, especially when the room came in sight. Yeah, I think she felt like she had a lot riding on this, with how much she wants to help her family and all. The duo paused in front of the door, nodding to one another before Izuku reached for the knob and opened it. Only to find a smiling Ochako sitting at the nearest desk. Man, I lost, she said as she rubbed the back of her head sheepishly. Too bad. The best way to describe Izuku and Kyoka's expressions at that would be to compare them to deer getting caught in the headlights. Needless to say, this was the exact opposite of what they were expecting. The greenette muttered. Hey, Chako. Kyoka walked in. How are ya doing? Oh me, pretty good, all things considered. Ochako scratched her cheek, careful to avoid the large, padded bandage on it. Guess I got carried away at the end there, though. Really thought I had it in the bag, dang it. Well, you seem fine. Izuku said hesitantly. But weren't you injured? We went to Recovery Girl's office and you weren't there. Kiryu was kind of surprised you left so early. But Ochako waved her hand in reassurance. Oh, don't worry about me, Deku. Recovery Girl took great care of me. She was really careful not to train my stamina too much, though, so I've still got a few scrapes and scratches. Kyoka tilted her head. And you didn't ask Marissa to heal those for you. I wasn't exactly up for feeling numb for a while, besides, I already experienced that feeling after the match. Ochako grit her teeth and brought up a frustrated fist. Geez, I didn't realize just how powerful Bakugo really was. He wiped the ring with me. Now I realize how much more training I have to do. The brunette trailed off when she noticed her friends staring at her incredulously. Something wrong? Well, no, but, Izuku reached out worriedly. You're sure you're good? Oh, heck yeah, I'm better than I expected. Ochako suddenly felt her phone buzzing in her hand, which didn't go unnoticed by Kyoka. Still, the perplete decided to remain silent about the matter as Ochako brought the phone close to her chest. Even if you've lost, you always gotta keep looking ahead to what's next, Deku. This just means I've gotta work harder now. While she was still concerned for her friend, Kyoka couldn't help but smile at Ochako's resilience. Now that's something I can get behind. Wahoo! The three brought their heads up at the sound of someone cheering, and they all knew exactly who it was with a voice that loud. Back up top, Kirishima and Tetsu had taken back to the battlefield in order to decide who would go on. As Midnight had suggested earlier, the contest would be arm wrestling, with Smintos having created a special table for them to do so. Thus, both boys had hardened up the most they could and went at it, growling as they pushed against each other with all their might. We're finally about to learn who the true winner is from the 7th match, Kirishima or Tetsu. The crowd became absolutely riled up as Present Might commentated on the heated match. Whoever prevails in this arm wrestling match will advance to the second round. Let's go. Just then, something happened. The hardened metal on Tetsu's hand cracked under the pressure of Kirishima's grip. As his opponent yelped, Jiro recognized his chance. Now, go. The spiky redhead let out a guttural tell as he slammed Tetsu's hand down and cracked through the concrete table, giving himself the victory. Kirishima is the winner. Midnight raised her hand. Add him to the bracket. As the crowd went wild for the display of strength, Tetsu knelt down and grasped his hand, gritting his teeth in pain. Gah, damn my metal deficiency. Shoulda eaten more iron this morning. At that moment, though, he saw a shadow cast over him, leading Tetsu to crane his head up, where he was met with a surprise. Kirishima stood over him with a hand extended, respect etched across his face. Hey man, you put up a good fight. As the sun cast its light over the two, Tetsu couldn't help but return the respectful grin. Hehe, ya weren't so bad yourself, bro. And thus, the duo shook hands, much to Midnight's absolute joy. Oh, so chivalrous. Up in the stands, meanwhile, Sideswipe had to admit, if he could shed tears, he probably would. All he could do was sniffle and ball a shaking fist at the sight, covering his eyes with his other arm. I swear, those two, maybe being so much alike ain't such a bad thing after all, man. Strongarm deadpanned and quipped, you're only figuring this out now. Now we've got a full roster for the next round of the tournament. Let's get the party started now, ya dig? Izuku furrowed his brow at Present Mike's announcement, a little frustrated that he hadn't had much time to prepare. Already? Huh, well, it is what it is. He turned around and waved to the two girls. Later, ladies, I'm off. Kyoka gave him a jab in the arm before he went off. Best of luck, Broccoli Top. We'll be rooting for ya. Oh, I'm sorry, Deku. Ochako reached out as he headed toward the door. You weren't able to prepare since I was here. Nah, this was perfect. Izuku shook his head with an assuring smile. I'll catch you two soon, okay. Ochako nodded and raised her hand to him. I'll be watching. Good luck out there. Thanks a lot. And with that, the greenette departed, leaving the two girls by themselves. Huh, well, we should probably get back to the stands. Kyoka nudged her head toward the door. I bet even Mina's back by now. A small chuckle escaped Ochako's lips at that. Hee, yeah, they're probably wondering where we are, but then, she glanced down to her phone, reading the missed call that she'd received earlier. But Kyoka, there's something I gotta do before heading back. Think you can? Oh, don't worry, I get ya. Kyoka winked. I'll be waiting just outside, so whenever you're ready. Thanks. As Kyoka stepped outside, however, she had a pretty good idea of what Ochako was about to do, along with who that missed caller was. And, as she listened to Ochako redial the number, concern for her friend outweighed her resistance to spying in on a personal conversation. Reluctantly, she plugged her jack into the door, and listened. Hey, Daddy. Ochako spoke first. Sorry for not picking up earlier. No, it's fine. Sorry for calling when you're busy. Your mom and I watched you on TV. You almost won. Honey, you were amazing. Kyoka smiled as she heard Ochako's father give his praise, yet the gravity user herself didn't sound as confident as she had been letting on earlier. It wasn't that close. And I wasn't very good, I rushed it too much at the end. I didn't have a backup plan for what I'd do if that big move didn't work. I failed. There was a momentary pause before Ochako's father spoke again. You lost, but that doesn't mean you can't still become a pro hero. I know I don't have the best understanding of how all this works, but there's always next year, right? This isn't the end. The earphone jack user could practically hear Ochako's voice begin to break. I know, but, I wish I could have gone further in the festival, so I could have more chances to show what I'm made of. The scouts barely saw me do anything this time around. Just what are you in such a hurry for, anyway, huh? It's just, I wanna help you guys out as soon as I can. Kyoka could hear the pain in Ochako's voice, making her hug herself to give herself some comfort. But, thankfully, Ochako's dad was quick to give comfort to his daughter, speaking softly to her. Ochako, there's no need to rush things, he assured. The very fact that you feel that way shows me you'll make a kind, caring hero one day. I am so proud of you, you know that, right? And that was that. Ochako broke down crying, covering her eyes with one hand as knelt over the table. Why yes, Daddy. I know, thank you, she hiccuped. Good, now you should really get back to the stands. Your friend's up next, isn't he? Why yeah, he is. I'm gonna go now, so, bye, Daddy. Goodbye, sweetheart. Love you, too. That was Kyoka's cue to take her jack out of the door and lean against the wall casually, keeping her eyes closed as Ochako came out. Whatever tears she had let out had been dried, and she seemed plenty composed. Kyoka offered a small smile to the brunette, only to get hit with the bluntest question possible. So, how much did you hear? Kyoka, however, took it in stride as she began walking toward the stands. I haven't the foggiest idea what you're talking about. Ochako pursed her lips and pointed at the punk rocker. See, using language like that is what makes people believe the exact opposite. You heard that whole thing, didn't you? Hey, all I heard was a one-sided conversation. Kyoka shrugged, fibbing just a little. Side note, you sure you're okay? I heard you crying, and they were good tears, I can assure you. Ochako took a deep breath as she fell in line with Kyoka, craning her head down just a little. I sometimes get really emotional when it comes to my dad. Hey, wish I could say the same for mine. Kyoka smirked. I love my dad, but he's a total doof. Ochako laughed and waved her hand. Haha. Oh, don't get me wrong, mine is, too. I can't begin to count the number of times he's done goofy stuff. She let out a breath, craning her head down slightly. It's just, he and I have always shared a strong bond, you know. Guess you could say I'm a daddy's girl. Kyoka brought her arm over her friend's shoulder, giving her a wink. Yeah, I get ya. Don't worry, I totally get it. Just don't forget, you've got us to come to if you're ever feeling upset too, okay? Right. Ochako nodded, feeling a whole lot better about herself than she had a few moments before. Alright, ladies and gents, let's get the second round of matches started. Lemme hear ya say, yay yuh. The crew of the Nemesis were baffled by such a word, needless to say. What the scrap kinda word is, yay you, and why would anybody say it? Barricade uttered. Nitro was scrolling through some databanks, trying to find the word in question and coming up with nothing. Can't even find it in any of this planet's dictionaries. Closest I've come are the words, yay, and, yeah, both being related to shouts of joy or affirmation. The female con rolled her optics and made her screen disappear. These organic languages can be so annoying to understand. This next bout brings together another couple of pals from Class 1A, so keep your eyes peeled. The Decepticons watched closely as Present Mike introduced the two students, who were walking out to meet each other on the battlefield. He's kept proving to be quite the surprising entrant in this sports festival, but can he keep up the pace in this battle? It's Izuku Midoriya versus the young man whose surprising speed has certainly left us all quite blown away, and a little amused. It's Tenya Iida. More of the Autobots, whelps going up against one another. Skywarp sneered. Don't you think this is getting rather old? Shadow Striker only returned a sour look of her own right back to her team leader. Well, that's what happens when all of them make it to Z finals. It's rather unavoidable. Yeah, I get it. Skywarp grumble. Just kinda tired of seeing those dumb teenagers. Swift whistled at the comment. Woo, the edgelords throwin' all the shade over here. Might wanna pump the brakes a bit there, Warp. Not like we can do anything about it, after all. Once again, the Seeker just growled and faced away from the screen, choosing to simply mind his own business. Swift, for her part, glanced back over to her commander. So, what'd you think, boss? Which kid's gonna win this one? HMPH, Midoriya, obviously. Starscream scoffed. The engine-legged child is certainly faster, but Midoriya is simply able to maneuver himself better. In the end, I predict that his victory will be assured when his opponent isn't able to follow his movements to the letter. Swift had to admit, that was actually fairly well thought out. A bold prediction there, Screamer, let's see how that pans out for ya. Ready, begin. Izuku and Tenya didn't initially move when Present Mike gave the okay to start, the two friends having locked onto one another's sights with determined eyes. Just so you're aware, Midoriya, I very much still intend to keep my promise. Tenya went low to the ground, taking a ready stance to sprint forward as his engines began powering up. I will do my best to beat you, and I certainly hope you don't plan on holding anything back either. Never. Izuku widened his own stance, bringing his arms up in front of his while activating his own quirk. One for all, full cowling, 8%. All across his body, one for all manifested itself in jagged, red patterns before disappearing in favor of the green lighting that surged all across his body. I've only used this a few times during the whole festival, now it's time to really show it off. His eyes widened in challenge before shouting, come at me with everything you've got. Tenya wasn't about to hesitate on that request. Grah. Boom. The sound of Tenya's engines going into high gear echoed throughout the whole stadium as he charged toward his opponent, who remained still the whole time. With an exerting grunt, Tenya suddenly jumped into the air and went for a rolling kick, boosted by his engines, straight for Midoriya's side. Woo. Would ya look at that speed? It's enough to give ya whiplash folks, what the? Exclamation mark quote. Right as Iida's kick was about to connect, however, Izuku quickly bent backwards, ducking the attack at the very last moment before sliding directly under Tenya, who blinked in disbelief. Present Mike was practically out of his seat as he watched Izuku then do a double kip-up kick straight into Iida's back from the floor. Would ya look at that timing? Midoriya just matrixed his way out of that kick before giving one of his own. Such movability. However, despite being kicked, Tenya was able to twist himself back into position, landing in crouch before charging once again. A brilliant move, but not one that I'll fall for twice. Then you might wanna keep on your toes for this one. As his friend closed in, Izuku bent his legs before then leaping straight over Iida, this time balling a fist before bringing it down. Smash. But Tenya saw it coming first. I knew it. Quick as a flash, he kicked up his engines a bit and rushed out of the way, leaving Izuku to hit nothing but the hard cement below. Crack. Ow. Unfortunately for Izuku, both the pavement and his hand made the same sound, quickly feeling a tingly feeling traveling up his arm. Damn, he avoided that faster than I anticipated. Izuku removed his fist from the ground, noticing that one knuckle was bloody and a bit out of place. He grit his teeth and opened his hand, pop. URK. The finger went back into joint, but it still didn't help the pain. Keep your head in the game, Midoriya. The greenette was too late to avoid Tenya's leg coming straight at him, the kick striking him in the shoulder and sending him tumbling across the field. Whoa, what a comeback from Iida. Just goes to show ya that speed can be both an advantage and a detriment depending on how it's used. When Izuku came to a stop, he thought over Present Mike's words, watching as Iida circled back toward him. He's right, I might have the maneuverability, but even with full cowling, Iida's still faster than me. I'm going to need to rely on lots of different factors here to help me. Whoa. He was brought out of his thoughts when Iida went for another kick, this time aimed at the inheritor's legs. As the two went back and forth, their friends watched on from the stands, all of them eagerly watching to see who would win this bout. Wow, Midori and Iida are so impressive. Mina admired, the pink girl now sporting a bandage wrapped around her abdomen. To think that both of them are able to go up to such high speeds. Yeah, pretty crazy. Denki agreed. No wonder they managed to get this far. Momo continued to pay attention carefully, making sure to take note of every move the boys used. The difference in fighting styles is clear, though. With Iida constantly on the move, his legs make for the most useful weapon he has. Her focus was mainly on Izuku, however. Meanwhile, Midoriya's better movement allows him to avoid Iida's attacks, but so far, he's only been able to land a hit when taking Iida off guard. Kyoka hummed and nodded. Yeah, you're right. Makes me wonder if Izuku will be able to get the jump on Iida again. Well, if Deku can take advantage of Iida not being able to make precise movements, then maybe, Ochako murmured. As they discussed this, though, Stella had made her way to the front and was cheering for her human partner, with Brian clapping his hands next to her. Come on Tenya, you've got this. Just keep up the pace, you've got this in the bag. Sadie was also down there, helping Brian show his support. Let's go, Izuku. You're doing good, just don't let Iida psyche you out. As his Autobots cheered, Orion could see that the gears were beginning to turn in Izuku's head. At present, he and Tenya were engaged in close combat, but the Prime could tell that wouldn't be the case soon enough. This match could either end in submission, knockout, or ring out, and I have a feeling that the latter will be the one employed here. On the battlefield, Izuku was doing his best to block all of the quick kicks that Iida was sending his way, which only managed to hurt his arms with every impact. It didn't help that the class rep was using small bursts from his engines to strengthen the kicks right before they hit, which made them all the more painful. I've gotta switch things up. If he decides to use his recipro burst, I'm done. Wait. Izuku's eyes widened as a plan entered his mind. If I can lure him into using his recipro burst, I might be able to win this. I just need to get enough distance and make sure the timing is right. With his plan in his head, Izuku suddenly ducked a high leg sweep from Tenya before punching him straight in the gut, causing the latter to go skidding back several feet. From there, Izuku took some distance himself, which Tenya didn't fail to notice as he began running after him. A little distance won't save you, Midoriya. Try and get me, then. Izuku said with a smirk before dashing off in a burst of green light. Was that a challenge? Tenya didn't really have much time to think about his friend's odd behavior, though, not when he was getting away. He put his engines into gear, increasing his speed as Izuku kept up the pace, while making sure he had his plan straight in his head. Okay, in order for this to work, I need to use a Texas smash. He glanced down to his left arm, taking every factor into consideration. If I bump up to 10%, then I think I'll be able to knock him out of the ring. It might hurt a little, but it's worth giving it a try, at least. As he approached one end of the field, Izuku turned on a dime and rushed over to the opposite side in no time flat, making Iida stop in surprise. What the? By the time he managed to compose himself, Tenya saw that Izuku had made it to his destination, the one-for-all user already in a crouch. So, you're faster than you let on. Well, I decided to bump up my power a little for that. Izuku replied. Think you can keep up? Oh, I very well know I can. Tenya went into his ready position, his engines beginning to power up into full gear. It looks like he's about to charge me. I have 10 seconds before my engines stall. I can get him out of bounds in that time, but I have to be sure I don't let him out of my sight. It's now or never. FWOOSH. From his engines, Iida's exhaust flames went from yellow to blue, which let Izuku know that he was ready. Torque over. Here it comes. His legs began to move. Recipro burst. Boom. With practically blinding speed, Tenya launched himself at Izuku, who reciprocated in kind, but instead of head-on, he darted off to Iida's left side. The blue-haired boy's eyes widened, following Izuku as they crossed paths in the middle of the ring, only to then see his arm begin to glow red with power. No, I took his bait. Tenya went to skid, being the only way that he could hope to turn without stopping. But it was too late. One for all, 10%, Texas, smash. Izuku punched Tenya in the back, the force whipping up a small burst of wind. That, along with Tenya's over-torqued engines, made for enough force to send him flying. He heard Tenya shout in shock and panic as he was blown straight through the air, and out of bounds, and into the opposing stadium wall. As Iida hit the ground, his engines stuttered and stalled, leaving Izuku stunned. I didn't mean for it to be that hard. Midnight was a bit surprised at the power of Izuku's hit herself, but nevertheless, she had to give the final ruling. Tenya Iida is out of bounds, so this match goes to Izuku Midoriya. The stadium erupted into a chorus of cheers, with those in Class 1A staring on in both joy and amazement. Whoa, did you see that? Shoto exclaimed. Yeah, that was something else. Shiro agreed, the tape user still wrapped in a warm blanket after his earlier experience. Midoriya's wicked strong. Ribbit, he might actually be in the running to win the whole thing. Suyu added. The frog girl didn't see it, but Bakugo's eye twitched a little after hearing that. Meanwhile, all of Izuku's closest friends were cheering their lungs out. Woo! Way to show him, Izuku. Kyoka belted out. Deku. That was amazing. Ochako called. Brian and Sadie down in front were both practically jumping for joy, while Stella gave a sigh as she watched Tenya slowly get to his feet. Oh well, there's always next year. And besides, if anything, this gives us an excuse to get to that training we were talking about. Back on the field, Izuku had quickly made his way over to Tenya, the spectacled young man letting out a breath as his hand went to his back. Hey, are you okay, Iida? The greenette offered a hand, which thankfully hadn't been broken by that attack. I'm sorry if that was too hard, I didn't expect to. No, don't apologize, Midoriya. Tenya insisted, taking Izuku's hand in a firm shake. He smiled as he stood up, bowing his head in respect. You genuinely got the better of me out on the field just now. To be frank, I did not expect such a maneuver on your part. Truly, you are just as crafty as you are strong, if your performance so far is anything to go by. Thanks. Izuku scratched his cheek. Though to tell the truth, I kind of came up with that plan on the fly. If anything, that just makes you more impressive. Tenya affirmed. You've shown yourself capable of creating premeditated plans and spur-of-the-moment plans quite effectively. You would make quite the tactician, Midoriya, and I only hope I'll be able to learn such feats as an aspiring hero. Izuku nodded back. I'm sure you will. So, can I expect a rematch next year? Tenya wore a determined smile at that. Oh, you can. But for now, do your best to win this year, right. Izuku craned his head up to the stands, where he saw his classmates all cheering for the battle they just witnessed. And, directly above them in the higher boxes, he could see All Might smiling and giving him a thumbs up. However, in another part of the crowd, he could see Shoto Todoroki standing by himself, his eyes locked firmly on him. I'm going to the semis, better make sure I give it all I got. And it's the end of Season 2 Part 15 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.